Hello, everyone. I'm Inga Cushman and currently serving on the executive board for the Wisconsin City County Management Association, or WCMA. We recently launched a series called Pathways to Public Service to highlight the unique journeys of our members into local government. The series aims to inspire future leaders and celebrate the diverse experiences that bring people into public service. I'm excited to have Nate Torres joining me today for our second interview in the series. He's currently serving as the city administrator for the city of Viroqua, Wisconsin, and also one of our regional directors for the association as well. So, welcome, Nate. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you reaching out and sort of having this conversation with me.
So, tell us a little bit about Viroqua, location, population, and any other information that you might want to add in.
Sure. Yeah, so City of Viroqua, we are in the southwest portion of the state, in Vernon County. We're the county seat. We're about 45 minutes southeast of La Crosse, so it's kind of the big city in this side of the state. We're part of what's known as the Driftless region, so it's where we have all this beautiful terrain, bluffs, coulees, all that jazz. We're a big farming community, both conventional and organic farming. And they talk about Vernon County as one of the biggest organic concentration of farms in the country, actually. Organic Valley's just up in Cashton, actually. And what I always tell people if they really want to get a feel for like, hey, tell me about Viroqua, what kind of area am I going into? There's three stoplights in the entire county, and they're all in our city. So we got them all. And it's a beautiful drive. We get a lot of calls every year about what color the leaves are, because people want to visit us when it's even more beautiful than it is right now. And yeah, it's just a really great place with a lot of good people, and I've really enjoyed my time here.
How many years have you worked in public management?
So this will be almost 7 years now. Previously, I was in nonprofit management, and so I made that change over to government in 2019, so March of 2019. So I've been here since.
Okay. So, this was your first public management job then
Correct,
with
correct. I
Viroqua.
went to school for my MPA back in 2011, 2013, but again, I specialized a little bit more in nonprofit management. But there was a lot of overall, sort of similarities between sort of the two sectors. So I learned quite a bit about, budgeting, voting, uh, you know, new public service, all the hot theories and topics that come along with public administration.
Where did you get your MPA from?
So I'm part of NIU's MPA program. So I graduated from there in 2013.
Okay, I'm a 2011 grad myself from
Oh,
NIU.
okay.
So,
You
so
would have
yeah,
been, you would have left right before I was coming in the door.
yeah. So with the MPA program at NIU, there is that nonprofit specialization, but then also
Yep.
urban management and some other ones like that too. So, great school to explore. And of course, there's other ones, but as two
But
NIU grads here, we're gonna, plug
yeah,
that one the most, I think.
yeah.
With your current role, what challenges or opportunities do you find most exciting?
Oh, well, that's a good question. There's never really a dull moment around here. We're a very active community, especially for one of our size. Um, there's a lot of interest in our community, both from residents and tourists. So a lot of good energy. A very big diversity of people in terms of their backgrounds. We have a lot of the folks who have been here for years and generations, and then we have a lot of folks moving here because they like the climate or the culture or whatever it is. And they bring their unique backgrounds with them as well. So you get to interact with a lot of different folks and kind of hear their ideas and their backgrounds. And so that's really fascinating. And there's just a really positive human energy in our community these days, a lot of people who want to do some really positive things. And I think as a result, our community is really thriving because of it. And at the same time, that's simultaneously a challenge when you get people with a lot of diverse backgrounds. It's sometimes hard to agree on things, and people can get very passionate. And I think anybody who's in this role is used to dealing with really passionate people. And so I would say not to make it a cop out to your question, but that can be both a challenge and a something to look forward to. But I would just say overall, just being part of a really um, blooming community is feels really good to be a part of.
So my next question was local government your first career choice coming out of high school or college?
Oh boy. I think like a lot of people, there's a discovery period where what you think you want to do and what sounds good is actually not what you like. When I first came out of high school, I wanted to be an engineer, and then quickly realized I was not a big fan of that much math and science. I like math and science, just not that much, and so that gets pretty intense. And so in college, I transitioned over to politics and government. And I actually got my degree in politics and government, and there was similarly within that a big focus on nonprofit management. And um, I worked for a YMCA throughout my life. And so naturally, as I grew into my professional career, I was like, hey, wouldn't it be great to be an executive director of a YMCA? And so that was my first job moving to this region was as a director and administrator at the La Crosse YMCA. And then as I got further along, I realized that as you get into that executive director role, a lot of it is working with major donors and, bringing in that funding. And I was not a big fan of fundraising, and so that sort of said, yeah, if glad handing and doing that sort of stuff is sort of where I'm going, not necessarily what my long-term goal was. And so the city of Viroqua position opened up, and I took a look at it. And again, I'd had enough experience in the world of city management that I put my hat in the ring, and they came calling. So it's been a good journey, and I think all those sort of like steps along the way have been really helpful towards bringing just different areas of expertise into my role here.
Yeah, I think all of those past experiences all contribute something to the career that you're in today, for sure. What's the most rewarding aspect of your career today?
Oh, honestly, when you're able to make things happen, right? It's a lot of sometimes trudging through the muck. Bureaucracy doesn't move fast. Some ways it wasn't intended to move fast, but sometimes you just really get bogged down. And we've had plenty of projects that have kind of gone through the mire and been stuck. And I think the most rewarding part is when you're able to kind of shoulder a project through. That's really important to the community and will have a really positive impact, right? To say like, hey, that was challenging, but I helped with, all the members of the community and the council and my department heads and, staff running the clerk's office. We were able to make this project happen. And something like a new park or making sure that Viroqua gets a new police station that it desperately needs so that we can serve our growing community and make sure that public safety is supported the way it needs to, right? Especially with all the challenges that even rural communities are facing when it comes to crime and everything else. Like it sounds corny, but just like making people's lives better is at the heart of like what we all do as public administrators, right? Is like we're running these communities as our job, but our goal here is to, make our community the best that it can be and help guide the elected officials to those ends. So
Is there a certain project in the community that you're most proud of overall?
sure. Oh, this one's probably the most recent one. It's the, new affordable housing development that we're putting in. That's a multifaceted project that required a lot of my involvement. And at the end of the day, it combines the need for more housing, or it sort of helps that need by providing 65 units of low-income housing in a rural area that is relatively poor. At the same time, we were able to put in a licensed childcare facility. And I'm proud of that simply because, my job at the Y was to help provide licensed childcare spots to people across the county. And so to be able to bring that sort of experience into Viroqua and, like most communities, sometimes problem 1A and 1B are housing and childcare. And to be able to hit one project that sort of tackles both felt pretty good.
And I saw that in a news article I saw online about that childcare facility, and you're partnering with a local organization as
Yeah.
well. Can you talk a little bit about that partnership?
Yeah, we did an RFP. Having been at the Y, I know that the Y does great work with licensed childcare. They're a little far away, 45 minutes to run a satellite can be a challenge, but we sent the RFP to them. We sent it to VARC because VARC, has certainly been a leader in childcare for a number of years now, and as well as talked to some of our local smaller centers about, hey, would you want to grow? Would you want to move into this new location? So it started with the RFP process. We gave that a couple months, and VARC was sort of the one who kind of rose up and said, yeah, we'll do this. And so for the last 9 to 10 months, we've been working on this is what it looks like, this is the deal. It shouldn't have had to take that long, but frankly, we were juggling that among numerous other projects. And so both myself and the leadership at VARC just decided, we can table this for a little bit. The building's not even halfway done yet. Let's pick it up. And it's been just a really great process working with them. They're set to move in hopefully around October 1st in terms of moving into the building and then however long it takes them the process to become a licensed childcare, get furniture, build a waiting list, go through the state process of getting licensed. And then hopefully they're up and running relatively soon after that, maybe a couple months. These things take time.
And VARC, for those who don't know, what's the background for that organization?
So traditionally, and Liz and Megan will um, hit me with a shoe if I don't get this quite right, but typically what they do is they provide occupational rehabilitation services for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And obviously with the child care center, they're sort of expanding their foray into other areas and scopes of work. And so, to be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if they do a heck of a lot more, but they have a large facility in town where they do sort of that core work that I talked about. And they have a child care center in La Crosse. I believe it's on the south side, but I can't say right off the top of my head. And I think this would be their second center.
How has WCMA influenced your career or professional development, and what part of WCMA do you find the most helpful in your career? So newsletters, articles, webinars, and
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah. I think first and foremost is being part of a larger group. Sometimes when you're a city administrator, there is a sense of maybe feeling alone on an island. I'm sure that happens to most department heads and most, executive level staff, but just understanding there are people maybe not down the street, but across the county or in a different county who are going through very similar situations. I think that's the most reassuring, especially in times of stress like we are in these days, being able to just jump on a regional meeting, even just like you and I are, and just to kind of shoot the breeze, talk about what's going on, talk about what's frustrating us or what's going right in a very candid manner, is great. It's really, I leave those 1 hour virtual meetings just very refreshed and like, okay, my situation's not so bad, right? Somebody else over here is going through something similar, or maybe even worse. So count my blessings. Or, hey, that was really helpful. I'm going to reach out to that person and maybe pick their brain on this. Um, it's just kind of a shortcut to the right idea sometimes. And that's just really valuable is talking to some people, especially ones who are more experienced, who have been there before and been doing this. Um, you have all that expertise just willingly at your fingertips, give them a call. And I think that's great. So that's my big one is just the camaraderie that comes with the region. And then of course, the webinars are great, just jumping on those, professional development, especially in a small community can be hard to access because when you leave, it's not like you have a ton of people behind you to pick up the work, right? So making those readily accessible is really great for ongoing professional development. And after that, I really enjoyed the code of ethics. I know that sounds like a weird thing to be a really big fan in, but as part of, and you probably remember this from when we were going through the grad program at NIU, having that sort of compass for yourself to know that when you enter into situations that seem sort of murky, there's sort of a backbone or a foundation that you can sort of turn to and say, hey, what does the WCMA say about this particular situation? And you can call, now I'm in the role, but at that point, when I ran into the situation, I called the current coordinator. And then if you still don't have that, you can call the senior advisor and sort of saying like, hey, I'm dealing with this situation. It seems okay, but it's not quite passing the smell test yet. So what do I do? And that's just really good because, in this role, sometimes you get put into some weird situations that are very novel. And if not handled delicately and appropriately, could land you in some trouble. So that's a really good feeling just to have that resource available.
Yeah, and just quick, those senior advisors are individuals who have been in the profession for a very long time, retired professionals, and available to all of our WCMA members if there's any kinds of questions with their career or especially like the ethics code, like you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Dawn Peters, she's also the executive director, another great resource for any kinds of questions that may come up as well. Do you have any advice for professionals just entering the field?
Oh boy. You know, I think I think there's a just helping them know that there's no matter what you do or what your experience, there's always a learning curve to every community. And going into meetings and doing your first 90 days or first 100 days with a community, being comfortable with the fact that you're sort of the feeling of being lost, right? I think going into that, it's a, even if I were to transition now to go to another community, I would still have that feeling of like, where am I at? Who are the people I need to talk to? How do they do things? What is the culture? Like it can be daunting. And so just being comfortable with being uncomfortable in new roles, I think it was a big learning lesson, especially as I made the transition from the nonprofit world over to the municipal world. I had been in that role for 6 years, so I was 6 years removed from the MPA program. And so there was a lot of getting back into it, of understanding all the terminology and the rules, especially here in the state of Wisconsin versus where we graduated from in Illinois. There's a whole different set of rules, levy limits being what they are, and stuff like that. And just giving yourself time and patience to wrap your head around everything is a good skill to have and a good, in some ways, coping mechanism, right? So I would say that's the biggest thing. It's just know that it's natural. I guess at least it was for me, and I'm sure it will be again if I have a new adventure here.
Be okay with not knowing the answer is kind of
Yeah,
my takeaway from that.
right. Well, and you say it's interesting you say that because when I took the job, part of what they're paying me for is to know all the answers, right? Like my job description, there was a lot of advice on this, understand this, and it's like, okay, well, we all need to grow into those job descriptions sometimes, especially when we come from different sectors.
Right. And every community is going to have their own history, their own reasons for doing this procedure this way or this process that way.
Right.
And you just need to take some time, digest it, and maybe find those people in the organization that can give you that background so you can better understand it too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. It's just ask as many questions. You know, I'm a numbers guy. One of the things I wish I would have done is lock myself in a room for a week and just look through the budget and just go through everything, ask as many questions as possible. Because 6 years later, still to this day, I'm finding things in the budget. It's like, why are we doing it this way when it's those little things like that that you wish you would have caught. But that's more granular, right? I think big picture is just be okay with the idea that you're always going to be learning no matter where you're at in your career.
Do you have any further career goals or aspirations at this point?
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, I mean, ultimately, I think what we all want for ourselves is just a level of stability. And I think that's the hardest thing where a lot of us in the city administrator role finds ourselves. Um, at this point in time is that there's such a need for government to fill. There are so many needs that government needs to fill for its communities, right? You see a lot of governments jumping into childcare or trying to ensure that housing happen where not too many years ago that just happened by itself and you just had to regulate it and help facilitate it. Well, right now we're taking a more active role in a lot of those things, and that's a big lift, right? That's unusual. We're doing more fundraising, right? That's a new territory that governments have entered into probably in the last 15 years is now we have to start fundraising to get stuff done that we want to get done, where usually that was the domain of the nonprofit world. And so I bring all those up because as needs increase, it's not like we're getting a lot more resources to deal with them. And that creates um, some really challenging scenarios. And it'd be nice one day to get to a point where it's like, okay, we're feeling good, right? We don't feel like we're constantly 10 yards behind, right? Um, Not having enough funding is probably something government has struggled with since the day it was conceived, but it would be nice to get into a situation where you don't feel like you're a person down in every department and that every day you leave the office, there's not 15 to 20 things that got left undone, right? I think for it's the little things like that, those career aspirations of just getting to a point where you're feeling not overwhelmed all the time. And um, maybe I'm only going to this now because I just got out of our first budget team meeting of the season, and that is the biggest challenge that, there's some recency bias there, but I think that's a pretty simple and humble goal is just to kind of hit a good stride.
Get the systems in place and
Right,
let the work happen.
right.
Great. Do you have any favorite books or podcasts or other resources that have helped you the most in this profession?
Oh boy. Um, I just started reading a book called The Rule of Nobody that was pretty fascinating. It just talks about how as governments and things get bigger and bigger, there's just how all the different ordinances, state statutes, codes, sort of how they interact with each other and public bureaucrats like myself to make it hard to get things done. Right. And I haven't finished the book, and I don't know, frankly, how controversial the book is or isn't, but it just brought up an interesting perspective that it's good as a bureaucrat for us to remember that the idea, and you probably heard it when we were going to school, is one person's tape is another person's procedural safeguard, right? What is the right balance between having so many rules and policies where when do you need to have the ability to look at a situation uniquely and make a good judgment call on it, right? And so that one was a good one. I've been enjoying listening to that one. Um, and sometimes when I'm reading, it's just to take a break from even thinking about it. So I'm big into fantasy novels. I'm a big Robert Jordan fan, so I've been going through his whole series, which he's kind of put in the pantheon between Tolkien and Sanderson and things like that. So usually when I'm reading these days, it's for leisure, right? But sometimes if I'm feeling nostalgic, I'll go through my old NIU textbooks and sort of peek through there and see what still stands as true and what is outdated, right?
So take some time to read for joy, not just for
Yeah,
your work.
yeah. Well, and I have a 45-minute drive home, and so having that break time between work and home is really powerful, right? I come home with more of a clear head. Anything that was bothering me from the day, hopefully I've overthought it on the car ride, and then I'm ready to be at home and be present there. So that's nice too.
What's the best way for viewers to connect with you if anyone has any questions or wants to learn more about your journey into public service?
Sure. Well, that makes it seem like I'm going to get a bunch of phone calls. I was like, are people going to be that interested about my journey that I'm going to get phone calls? It's like, if you'd like to hear more about Nate's story, yeah, phone. I love talking on the phone.
Okay.
I think a lot of us spend a lot of time typing up emails, and that's fine. But especially for the audience that we're talking about here, I really enjoy connecting with city administrators or other people in the profession, clerks, treasurers, whoever may be, planners. They can give me a call on my phone. If you want my phone number now, I can give it. But yeah, just hit me up to chat. It's interesting, and I don't know if you noticed that, but whenever you call another city administrator and you identify yourself as an administrator, the tone of the conversation just immediately changes, right? It goes from being super professional and ready. It's like, okay, city administrator, what can I do for you? It's like, oh, hey, it's almost like every city administrator you call, there's sort of that instant connection of a shared life experience. So that's always fun for me too.
And you're the Region 4 coordinator, is
Or
that correct?
coordinated. Yeah, brand
So,
new. I mean, I haven't had my first official Region 4 event yet, so I don't know if I can call myself a coordinator just yet, but they did assign me the role. So yes, that is what I do.
and Region 4, which counties is that again? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a test. So I'll do my best, and if I leave any counties out, my apologies. But We are Trempealeau, La Crosse, Monroe, Vernon, and I think maybe one more. We're not Crawford. Um, maybe we're Richland as well, but we
I think
we don't have a member from Richland at Richland Center at this point.
I think Richland might actually be in Region 5. Either
Sure.
way, if you're watching this video, right now there's a map up on the screen. So then you can see the regions and where everybody's located. And if you are in Region 4, be sure to reach out to Nate and then he can
Yeah.
get you connected with the group. And my understanding is you do virtual meetings,
Yeah, so
historically at least,
yeah, part of Region 4, we try to do 8 virtual meetings a month, and then we try to do 2 in-person meetings. We're a pretty,
a month or a year.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
8 a month. That'd be a
Yeah,
lot.
we don't do anything else at our jobs except for meet as a region. No, we do 8 virtual meetings per year, and then we have 2 in-person meetings per year. We try to take maybe July off, and then I think we take another month off to allow people to go to conferences and things like that. But um, yeah, we try to make it easy. Our region is pretty big geographically, as you would expect in a rural community. I'm sure the folks to the north or maybe in like Bayfield would say, well, if you want to see a big region, come up north and we'll show you one. But it's hard, it's to even get across our own county, just Vernon County, it's an hour drive, right? So if you're coming from Trempealeau all the way down to Hillsborough, it's a bit of a trek. So we try to make life a little easier, especially with all the time commitments by doing a little bit more virtual.
Thanks, Nate, for your time today. I appreciate you sharing your experiences and insights with our viewers and our listeners as well. So stay tuned for more stories from WCMA members as we continue to explore the many pathways that lead to meaningful work in local government. Thanks again, Nate.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was nice chatting with you.
Nice chatting with you too.